Thank you. Thank you so much. It is good to be with you. It's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. It is, thank you. Thank you. It warms my heart. Thank you all. Thank you. God bless you. And it is an encouraging event. I don't get this so much in Washington. I got to tell you. I'm impressed and thrilled to be here, and just really am impressed that you're here and that you care about the issues that are important to America, timeless, fundamental issues, and are engaged in the great battles and debates of our time on an intellectual and legal basis. And you are proven to be a match for many of the adversaries out there who have different views about things. On behalf of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, I want to thank all of you for your work and commitment to religious freedom at such a time as this. As President Trump said to the National Prayer Breakfast last year, quote, "Freedom of religion is a sacred right, but it is also under threat all around us. I've never seen it so openly threatened." So this is a problem here and around the world. In the Middle East, some religious minorities like the Yazidis and Christians, after centuries of being able to coexist with religious majorities, are facing the possibility of extinction. In Russia, it's illegal to be a Jehovah's Witness or to publish their translation of the Bible. In the Philippines, 3 Catholic priests have been assassinated so far this year. In June, a priest was shot to death at the altar right in front of his congregation. So according to Pew Research, 82 countries, 82, have high or very high restrictions on religion. These facts reflect a rise, I'm afraid, in religious persecution in areas of the world where religious groups have been able to live peacefully together. To avoid such results, our founders made a commitment to religious freedom that was truly historic, and it remains exceptional today and vitally important. The founders understood the evil of religious persecution and violence. They intended this country to be a safe haven where law-abiding people could live quietly, justly, and devoutly, according to their own conscience. The clearest expression of this idea perhaps came from James Madison, who I think was one who really shaped the national consensus. Americans moved from the Lockean view of tolerating other people's religion to religious views of respecting and acknowledging each individual's right to freely exercise their religious faith. As Madison expressed it, religion, or the duty one owes to our Creator, cannot be directed by government power, and that duty is precedent in order of time and degree of obligation to the claims of civil society. He declared that right, this religious freedom right, to be unalienable. Well, that's a pretty bold statement, that it transcends and precedes the very existence of civil government. The final product, our First Amendment, actually gives religious expression a double protection in the supreme law of our land, the Constitution. Not only do we possess freedom to exercise our beliefs, but we also enjoy the freedom of speech. Both are often akin to one another. 20 years later, in 1812, former President John Adams remarked, quote, "Nothing is more dreaded than the national government meddling with religion." Adams and Jefferson were political opponents, but they agreed on the human right of religious freedom. That consensus does seem to be eroding today. We've seen nuns ordered to pay for contraceptives. We've seen United States senators ask judicial and executive branch nominees about their dogma, really a clear reference to their religious beliefs, even though the Constitution explicitly forbids a religious test for office. Here in Georgia, there was a religious liberty bill proposed in the legislature. Those moral enforcers, Bob and Harvey Weinstein, were so offended that they threatened to stop filming their movies here. The people of Georgia apparently don't measure up to the Weinstein standard of behavior. And, of course, we've seen the ordeal faced bravely by Jack Phillips, who I understand is here. He's just simply refused to yield to his beliefs. You know, as they say, the razor's edge between tenacity and hard-headedness, but he stood in there. He stood for what he believed in and won a victory in the Supreme Court of the United States. But I understand now that matter is still far from over. We may be seeing another round. But that's why ADF and other groups are right to give serious thought and to take real action on these matters. It's important. The people of this nation are still the most religious people in the developed world. Yet people of faith are facing, I think it's fair to say, a new hostility. And really some of it is a bigoted ideology, which is founded on animus toward people of faith. They just don't like it. You'll notice that they don't rely often, normally they don't rely on facts. They don't make better arguments. They don't propose higher ideals. They just call people names like hate group. Does that sound familiar to you? Well, you know, I'm from Alabama, the home of the Southern Poverty Law Center, an organization that once and has done important work in the South, vital work at a pivotal time in history. I knew Morris Dees well, but as you know well, the law is only words on paper until there are people brave enough to stand up and enforce those rights. There were hate groups in the South, and I suppose in the nation today there are some. Certainly there are. They attacked, in my region, the life, liberty, and the very worth of minority citizens. You may not know this, but I helped prosecute and secure the death penalty for a Klansman who murdered a young black teenager in Mobile, Alabama, hung his body from a tree. The resulting wrongful death action that arose out of that led to a $7 million verdict and the bankruptcy of the Ku Klux Klan in the South. And that they forfeited, actually, the building, Morris Dees did, and that case was brought by the Southern Poverty Law Center. But when I spoke to ADF last year, I learned that the Southern Poverty Law Center had classified ADF as a hate group. Many in the media simply parroted that as a fact. Amazon relied solely on the SPLC designation and removed ADF from its SMILE program, which allows customers to donate to charities. They've used this designation as a weapon, and they've wielded it against conservative organizations, others than ADF, that refuse to accept their orthodoxy and choose instead to speak for their conscience and their beliefs. They use it to bully and to intimidate groups like yours, which fight for religious freedom, which is indeed the civil rights, the constitutional rights of the American people. So you and I may not agree on everything, but I wanted to come back here tonight partially because I wanted to say this: you are not a hate group. Thank you. This organization has a 9-0 record in the Supreme Court over the last 7 years in cases you've engaged in. That includes 2 of the most important cases of the last term. 2 of those 9 cases were 7-2 votes in the court. One was per curiam, one was 9-0. In the lower courts, you've won hundreds of free speech cases. That's an impressive record. Our Department of Justice would like to do that well, although I can assure you the Obama administration Department of Justice would love to have done that well. So you endeavor to affirm the Constitution and American values. That's what you work for. A lot of people do. Sometimes we don't agree, but you have every right. You have a duty, if you believe something, to advocate for it. As for me, I'm not going to apologize for the United States of America or our First Amendment. We're going to defend that amendment. I know you feel the same way. This is the greatest, most generous country in the history of the world. We have the greatest legal system in the history of the world. You travel like I have around the world, and you see how hard it is to establish a rule of law and consistency and public safety in countries with great people, and every day they struggle in a disorganized, disorderly, dangerous society, and they feel almost hopeless to be able to change it. We need to remember the heritage we've got and protect and defend it consistently. And we're not going to partner with hate groups, not on my watch. So I've ordered a review at the department to make sure that we do not partner with groups that discriminate. We will not partner with groups that unfairly defame Americans for standing up for the Constitution or for their faith. The American people, I think the American people care about this issue. Many people are deeply concerned about it. Americans from a wide variety of faiths are asking themselves, how much longer until I'm in Jack Phillips's position? How much longer until the state, the media, the academy, the tech companies, the global secular corporations come down on me because of my beliefs? Fortunately, President Trump has heard these concerns, and unlike some, he's not afraid of the name-calling and the fake news. So he's endured a lot of relentless criticism and media attacks in order to speak up for the forgotten people of this country and principles this country were founded on. He made a promise, and from day one, he has delivered. He is defending religious freedom at home and abroad. Just last week, the Treasury Department sanctioned Turkey's Minister of Justice and the Minister of Interior, both of whom played leading roles in the arrest of the American pastor Andrew Brunson. Turkey was kind enough to return the favor and sanction me. I was informed that they have frozen all my Turkish assets. Maybe my wife and I, when we take our anniversary trip, will look for some different place to go. President Trump has appointed 24 circuit judges, more than any other president at this point in history, and we've got some more to go. 1 out of every 7 circuit judges is now Trump judge. These are judges who will honor their oath to serve under the Constitution and laws of the United States, not above them. So shortly after he took office, President Trump directed me to issue legal guidance to ensure that all executive agencies would faithfully apply the religious liberty protections in federal law. Our team embraced that challenge. Some you've probably already seen since this conference has been here, or maybe you're aware of. They have worked their hearts out on this. We consulted with scholars around the country, and I believe we did a pretty good job of setting up that guidance. Our team, I spoke about it at the ADF conference in Dana Point last July when I visited with you. I issued that guidance in October, and it lays out 20 fundamental principles for the executive branch to follow. Some think we get to tell everybody else in the department, in the government, what to do, but all we can do is issue guidance. But when you have the backing of the president, guidance is an important thing. Under this guidance, the federal government is not just reacting, we are actively seeking carefully, thoughtfully, and lawfully to accommodate people of faith. Give them the right to freely exercise their faith that the Constitution provides. And under this president, the Department of Justice is going to court across America to defend the rights of people of faith. We are aggressively enforcing our civil rights laws, our hate crimes laws, and laws protecting churches and faith groups. Since January of 2017, we have obtained 11 indictments and 8 convictions in cases involving arson or other attacks against houses of worship. Our Civil Rights Division has obtained 13 indictments in other attacks or threats against people because of their religion. And we're not slowing down. 3 weeks ago, we obtained a jury verdict against a man who set fire to a mosque in Texas and a man from Missouri for threatening to kill members of a mosque. Yesterday, we obtained a life sentence for a man who murdered an Indian American man, a Sikh as it turned out, because he thought he was a Muslim. These are the kind of horrible things that we do not need to allow in this country. And in addition to protecting the safety of the people of faith, we are also protecting them against discrimination. The department has settled 24 civil cases with 90 plaintiffs regarding the previous administration's wrongful application, we believe, of the contraception mandate to objecting religious employers. Earlier this year, a district court in Colorado issued a permanent injunction protecting the Little Sisters of the Poor from a government mandate that unnecessarily and unlawfully restricted their right to exercise their faith. In the case, the department took the unusual steps of formally switching sides in the case from the previous administration to successfully support the result that they had rightfully sought. By the way, I saw Ken Starr earlier, fabulous former Solicitor General of the United States, and appreciated his op-ed recently praising the department and our Noel Francisco, our current Solicitor General. We switched sides on 4 cases from the previous administration, which is something we don't do lightly. Department is there. And we gave a lot of thought to it, and Noel worked on it, and won all 4 in the U.S. Supreme Court. So I think people who say that we're acting recklessly and unlawfully or doing things that are improper, our record, I think, is very good, and I'm proud of Noel and his team. We also filed a brief on behalf of the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C., which was refused advertising for having a religious message. Give me a break that you can't, because the president said we can say Merry Christmas again, at least pretty good signal, though, about where we are in the country when you almost have to discuss that kind of freedom of speech and freedom to express your religion. And we filed supporting briefs in 2 ADF cases. wins you have been celebrating. I know this week, a Masterpiece Cake Shop in NIFLA, a mandating speech on the pro-abortion speech, mandating that kind of speech. So we got involved in a lawsuit filed by ADF against Georgia Gwinnett College, a taxpayer-funded school that punished a student for sharing his faith outside the free speech zone. How big was this free speech zone? Just 15 ten-thousandths of the size of the campus that they were on. And even inside the free speech zone, you had to grovel for permission from the administration. Give me a break. This is both an exercise of free speech and free exercise of religion, both of which are in the first lines of the First Amendment of our Constitution. So in June, I announced the Place to Worship initiative. Under this initiative, the Department of Justice is holding public events across America and improving training for federal prosecutors about legal protections of houses of worship. That same day, we filed suit against a town in New Jersey for using zoning regulations to allegedly discriminate against an Orthodox Jewish congregation that tried for 8 years without success to buy land for a synagogue. In July, we filed a brief in federal court supporting the case of a Hindu temple in Maryland that claimed to have suffered discrimination in its attempt to purchase land. One cynic, maybe not too far off base, said that the gendarmes and the people in the cities, they don't get tax revenue for churches, so they don't care about churches. Or whatever their bias may be, I got to say that churches have a right to purchase land and to build. We certainly cannot allow that to be eroded. Last Monday, we held a Religious Liberty Summit at the Department of Justice, and I announced our next step. I announced the Religious Liberty Task Force. More than 100,000 people tweeted about it. I was impressed. It was the third most tweeted about topic on earth at one point in the day. Late night comedians joked about it, although maybe that's a generous term for their doings. But actually, some of it was pretty funny. I had to give them credit for that. Contrary to the elites and their resistance, this task force is simply going to help us fully protect our religious freedoms that are pre-existing and unalienable. It will make sure that we practice what we preach by holding federal agencies accountable to federal law. It will help us identify more cases that are right and just and deserve to be brought. We intend to keep winning. Are you tired yet? So we are not going to be intimidated. You can be sure of that. Under President Donald Trump, we're going to continue to uphold the founders' tradition of religious liberty, and we will keep defending the rights of the American people as God gives us the ability. Thank you. It's a great honor to be with you, and thank you for your work. Thank you.